This episode of Naked Zombie Radio is proudly brought to you by Zombie Steeds. Are you ready for the apocalypse?
It is time, once again, to lock your doors, shut your windows, strap yourself into your favorite comfy chair, and tune out and tune into the Naked Zombie.
G'day, boys and girls, zombies, zombettes. There's no such word.
Bets.
G'day, Liam. How are you?
Good, how are you
I think I
tonight?
might try that intro again, actually. Good evening, boys and girls, zombies and zombettes. I did it again. I think I'll just quit while I'm ahead. How are you, mate?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, tired.
Tired.
Look, if you realise the last show of Naked Zombie Radio took an extra day to go up. Basically, my beautiful Mac Pro, and no one's saying anything bad about it, crapped itself. But I managed to save it. Remember the time we recorded a show and it crashed and we lost everything?
I
So
do.
we had to record it again. And it was like, God, I don't do another hell of this crap. So how you been, mate?
Yeah, good. So, yeah, been amongst all the rain and holding things down so they don't float away.
As you do. Actually, it's funny. I was watching I was at work the other day and it was pissing down rain, blowing the gale, and I was watching this. Any of the trucks that leave work have to be tarped if they're electric. This poor truck driver spent 2 hours trying to tarp down the trucks outside in the pouring rain. Every time you get the big tarp over, it'd blow off again. Now, you'd think I'd get off my arse and go and
I
help
was
him,
going to
but
say, you'd think somebody would go out and give him a hand.
I just couldn't be bothered.
Made a great YouTube video, though.
Yeah, YouTube. I think it was recorded, but not by me. Anyway, we are doing viewers' questions tonight, and
are.
of course, as we do, and you being the brains of the operation. And speaking of brains operation, I showed you the imagery that Mr. Wolf drew up of our characters for the animated TV series intro.
You did?
What did you think?
Absolutely brilliant.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Amazing. Amazingly talented, so.
Yep, we hate you. He was. He actually said no. Anyway, we're going to read out questions. And as you know, if you haven't heard already, you haven't heard the last show we did with the Geek Speak boys, who are officially part of Naked Zombie TV. Very, very interesting interview, to say the least. It would have to be one of the funniest non-made sense interviews I think I've ever done, but geez, it was funny. You got to listen to the rest of it when you get home, I think.
Yeah, good value.
Yeah, because I had you over for tea tonight. So what do you think of me cooking?
I think it was awesome.
Mate, I can cook. I should be on MasterChef. What do you reckon?
I think you're in with a good shot.
Yep, it was a bit runny, and there's so much you can only do with cat turd, but it was still pretty good. Anyway, we are reading the questions out tonight from the audience members because we posted up on the Facebook fan site that, as usual, we had nothing planned. Dead silence. We never have anything planned. This is the way we roll. Anyway, so I have some questions here, and the questions are starting to come in. I'm just reading some. Okay, Jason Gibbs. He writes to us, are movie remakes the work of the devil? Case in point, Evil Dead remake. There's your zombie/supernatural link right there. Good question. Are movie remakes the work of the devil?
I don't know if they're the work of the devil, but I think in a lot of cases they're probably not particularly warranted.
What, the remakes?
The remakes.
Oh, look, yeah, lot of remakes are absolute. Fright Night remake, rubbish.
Yep.
Compared to the original. What other remakes were there recently? Well, Night of the Living Dead's been remade dozens of times.
3 billion times.
And there's another one on the way. I enjoyed the first one. We spoke about this last night on the show. I enjoyed the original black and white,
Yep.
Night of the Living Dead. That was brilliant. Then they brought out the Evil Dead. And then there were other ones similar around that sort of base genre.
Yep.
And this is what I loved about it. The fact the first one, I guess, was like the catalyst for the zombie movies. You know, the slow shuffling. They weren't decayed or anything, were they?
No.
No, they were just, they're a bit dark under the eyes. But it was black and white, it was made back then. And it was like, it was the whole thought of these reanimated bodies coming back to life and chewing on people was just mind-blowing.
Yeah.
I mean, zombies have been around for a while before then, but the whole genre of it came to life then. Then you got, is it 28 weeks later?
Oh, 28 days.
28 days. I want to say 28 weeks. Yeah, 28 days later with the zombies, well, not really zombies they were, but they weren't. And they were like very fast.
Well, that was sort of the next evolution of the zombie movie was we sort of moved away from the concept of people dying and then coming back to life and made it more like a virus kind of thing where they were still relatively alive but just
and that's the same as I Am Legend.
Yep.
Yeah, I Am Legend, the same sort of thing. A virus that certain infected some people, and they accumulate in what's called hives, and they can't go out in sunlight and stuff like that. I mean, so you got all these. I think there's an I Am Legend a remake.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. And I wasn't too fussed on that either. I mean, this is the thing. Remakes, some of them are pretty much... I don't think they're the work of the devil. They're more work of someone who wants to make a quick buck who has no talent.
I think exactly right. I can't think up my own movie concept, so I'll just take a cult classic from 20 or 30 years ago and just reshoot it.
I mean, that's the thing. So are they work of the devil? We actually want... And that's from Jason Gibbs. Jason, seriously, mate, look, I know you work for the Geek Speak boys doing Geek Speak and love the show. Yay. And I'll be interested to see what your take is, mate, and give us some feedback. So we want to know from our zombie audience, who is just marvellous, about what they think is, are they the work of the devil?
Some black magic involved.
Reincarnation of crap. Now, our good mate, Alan Tiller, sent through a link on the Naked Zombie fan site. If you don't know what the Naked Zombie fan site, and you listen to the show, you'll find the Facebook page. Go to that, hit the like button. There's lots of stuff that I have no idea what it is on there, and it's embarrassed the shit out of me over the last 18 months, but it's doing all right, yes. Anyway, so it's about the mysterious light blamed for Circle of Fire. Now, I'll read you the news report. Okay, basically, Tasmania police and firefighters are unable to explain a source of a beam of light which reportedly fell from the sky and formed a circle of fire in the Hobart suburb. Early Saturday morning, police and fire crews received calls from concerned residents in the, what's that word, Caranage Street at Claremont? I got that part right. Who reported seeing a bright light igniting a fire in a nearby paddock. Tasmanian Fire Service Officer Scott Vinnan says that the blaze was quickly put out, leaving an obviously burnt patch. He said the bizarre incident has everyone baffled. You can tell I'm tired again. Once we put the fire out, we kind of walked through the fire to try to find something, he said. We thought a flare or something had landed there, but we couldn't find any cause. The fire service says it will not investigate further. Now, I've got a photo of it here, and you can go on to, if you look for it, you'll find it on, you Google it, you'll find it. Or if you go to the website or what, you'll find the link for it. Basically, in this brown, dry patch of grass, short grass, there is like a scorch mark. Now, what residents say, this beam of light came down. Is that what they're saying?
I think that's what they're saying.
A beam of light come down and set fire to this. Now, this is very interesting. I've heard of beam of lights coming down, and there's a couple of YouTube videos out there at the moment, actually, that they've been around for a little while now. They've actually got people like this one poor bugger, you see this, he's walking through a turnstile, and next to him you see this bright light, and they've actually got like the time code for security cameras coming up. You see this bright light, and then the guy disappears, right, as he's going through the turnstile. Now, I think about 10 minutes pass, nothing. Next, with the bright light comes back, and he's sort of back there, and he's staggering, and then he throws up everywhere. So it's like, that's cool, if you know what I mean.
Cool.
That is very, very cool. But it's also, you look at the one, have you seen that YouTube clip lately, based in China, I think it is, where that guy's pushing his motorbike at the intersection next to it that says, and this has got a lot of people full of this, bright light, Right, this guy comes screaming across, bright flash of light, the truck nearly hits a guy, but just before he hits, they disappear, then reappear behind the truck up the road a bit. That looked really good. That's actually an opening introduction to a TV series. Something about a superhero, but it's a Japanese or Chinese version of that.
Okay, so viral.
It's a viral ad campaign, so they've put it out there, and it's really well done. You know, then they slow it down and they speed it up and they slow it down, and it had a lot of people going for a long time. Yeah, it's only been out for about 3 weeks, so you got that scenario as well. Now, whether or not this bright light actually burned a patch, I'd be very interested. This is where we need someone from the UFO Society to come in, and we need to get. If you are a member of a UFO Society or a UFO hunter yourself, please get in contact with us, because we want to have you on the show, because I think we need to do a show on UFOs and UFOlogy,
as I like to call them. We haven't touched very much on the UFOs. No, we haven't,
have we? You know, we've mainly been touching on the creepy shit, but I think it'd be interesting to bring that perspective into the show as well, because everyone loves a good old UFO. So I'd love to get... Look, I've seen some funny shit in me time, you know, especially out at Macra and stuff like that. I think I've still got the footage somewhere. I should show you sometime, where we capture this bright light that breaks into 2 into 3, then back into 1, then 3 into 2, and this goes on for about 15 minutes over the harbour at Macra. Now, back in 1976, the New Zealand Air Force actually sent out a couple of patrol jets, because these lights
chasing the same thing,
and we just happened to be one night there. Well, I've actually got the footage, so I should try and find it. It was on the very first original TV shows I did back in 2008. That's getting on a bit now. So it was all shot with a little handy cam.
Yep.
It was quite cool though. I mean, there was 3 of us there, and you had to experience it. So I mean, yeah, I haven't seen anything else besides that. Have you seen anything of a UFO nature, mate?
No, not really anything of a UFO nature. I talked to a lot of people who I'm friends with who are very, very sane, who do believe that they've seen weird and wacky stuff that they couldn't explain. And definitely, I'd lived in Tasmania for a number of years and met quite a few fishermen who'd go out in Bass Strait. I'd go out for 2 or 3 weeks at a time, who said that on quite sort of dark nights they'd see weird lights and whatnot dancing around in the sky that they just couldn't explain. And for the first few times that you'd see them, you'd panic and freak out, but it'll just become sort of part and parcel of being out in the middle of Bass Strait, in the middle of nowhere, so it didn't much faze them. But they used to see stuff like that, on a semi-regular occasion, and they're not the kind of people who would believe in flights of fancy, and you'd never expect would tell you stories like that. But
this is a weird thing. I get asked this question a lot by people, actually, and for some reason, based of course the show we do, I guess, and that, and because a lot of people I work with, they know I do the show and that, and they're starting to come on board and listen to it. And one of the guys from work the other day, Scott, he came up and said, "Brad, what do you think? Do you think there is actual life out there? Do you think, could we be the only ones?" And I said, "Mate, if we are, that's a sad, sad state of affairs. If we're the only intelligent light we don't know how big the actual universe is. Ours just our universe, and there's upting universes, you know what I mean? This is the thing, but whether or not they got the technology or not to come here or not, I don't know, because we definitely don't.
Yep.
I think I think one of our satellites has just passed bloody Pluto a couple of years ago.
Well, that was only, 2 weeks ago. I think NASA finally released a picture of that was taken by the Mars rover that looks like a little flower looking form, that was growing on Mars. Although I think it was only a couple of days ago they've reported they've pretty much shut the Mars rover down because it had a Windows upgrade. And
it was running Vista.
Yeah.
See, it wasn't running Macintosh, that's why. But this is the thing, there's been reports even on, we're getting slightly off topic here, but this brings us into another topic which I find very fascinating. The whole thought of us being the only intelligent life form, I just can't fathom it. I'd like to think there is other things out there. Whether or not they've visited us in the past or not, we can go into the whole conspiracy theories. We can go into Area 51. We can go into all the fact that the states have, governments have known about the existence of extraterrestrials since the 1940s and all the rest of it. It's mind-blowing. in a way to think, and this is where I get a bit annoyed with people when they get so shut off and said, no, there's no such thing as aliens, no such thing as UFOs and stuff like that. It's because how could we be it in the vast scheme of things? I mean, if you took it on a religious basis, you know, the earth and the heavens were created in, 6 days, and the seventh day rested and all the rest of it. I don't know much about that side of things. But from what I knew from going to high school, in a Catholic high school, I sort of got a little bit of that information through. It just worries me that when something does show up, how are people going to react to it?
Yeah, absolutely.
The rule of thumb is we try and shoot it out of the sky. You know what I mean? It's like, take pot shots at things all the time. It's just the way we do it. Are they already on our planet? Are they already communicating with our governments and stuff like that? Is there such thing as a MIB, a Men in Black?
Well, Black-Eyed Kids.
Black-Eyed Kids,
again.
Yeah, the same thing. I redid an old story on the website a while ago about the Black-Eyed Kids, and the fact that these children, and were they have been either considered a demon of some sort or extraterrestrial.
Yeah.
I gave a speak at the UFO Society. I think it was going back 2-3 years maybe, and when I first got back to Australia, probably longer, and I got invited along, and I gave my talk on the paranormal, and then I touched the subjects of the UFO side of it, and the thought being that these ghosts we've seen, and this is a weird thing, are they actually, like the Predator, how they can cloak themselves and stuff like that? Are we actually seeing extraterrestrials in a cloaking that slips up occasionally and stuff? And I just brought that in general comment, because there's a lot of different aspects to the paranormal field that people don't dwell on, or is it we're actually going back and looking at ourselves in the past?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a very big fringe group there as well, that sits on the fringe of, the sort of UFOs and the paranormal ghosts, where you've got the parapsychologists on one side who believe in ghosts and don't really touch much on UFOs, and then the UFOologists who don't really touch a great much on ghosts. They're all about UFOs. But, quite a big group there who sort of falls halfway in between as well. And I've spoken to a few people who believe that, ghosts or sort of paranormal events are somehow triggered by UFO activity. A lot of people will say that when there's heightened UFO activity up in the sky and people are seeing weird lights in an area, there's also a lot of heightened paranormal, ghost type activity on the ground as well and in the buildings in that vicinity. So it's all very interesting to know if there is some kind of connection there, whether the UFOs actually go a fair way to trying to draw out ghosts from a different, from a specific area. Who knows?
So are we talking about, because they say time is not linear?
Yeah.
I mean, we have different periods. Like, say tonight, you came over for tea at a certain time. What happens in another version of us? You didn't show up till after dinner. What would we have done then differently to what we're doing now?
Yep.
I mean, that sort of time. Does it strain off in different areas? Does it go into different avenues of our existence? It's like the movie with Jet Li in it. You know how...
Yep.
Oh, what's that movie called?
That The One?
The One. Principle, there are multiple different people, and that some maybe of the homosexual nature, or like a gay nature, or there will be someone else who's very successful, or someone who's very poor and broke, someone who had kids, someone who never had kids, say of myself or you type thing. What does that... So we've got all these different avenues of where our life could go. It's like when you turn left instead of right. What would have happened if you turned right?
Yep.
How would that change your day? Now, the reason I've gone on this tangent is a lot of speculation theory has been that because we have supposedly had all these different timelines, people from other timelines way in advance of us are maybe coming back to check on people back in the day, because it's sort of weird, because some of the descriptions of people haven't always been the lady in white.
Yeah.
Some people have been said, the clothes are different, stuff like, are we seeing echoes of the past?
Well, that begs the question again. In NASA, I think, is working on that theory of having some kind of sort of interdimensional method of jumping to travel vast distances in space. Who's to say that, especially given that the vast majority of hauntings, as we know them, are in the nature of what's considered like a recorded haunting or a residual haunting, especially with apparitions that might walk down a hallway and not interact with a person, might walk straight through you or walk by and not acknowledge you.
Yeah, or what if a wall that a doorway used to be in? That
what
sort of
if
thing.
Having the UFOs in the area, because they've managed to utilize the different dimensions to jump from wherever they've come from to here, causes some kind of rift between the dimensions, so we're not actually seeing the ghost, that residual spirit. We're just, the veil between this dimension and the next dimension is so weak that we're actually seeing into another dimension, but to us it looks like it's a
ghost or something like that.
That's pretty deep, isn't it?
Because actually, getting back to that story quickly, when I go to speak at the UFO Society, I mentioned that as a possibility, and this is the thing, like I said to him right at the start, these are my viewpoints and theories. I'm only going to give you the information that I've collected, right? And I actually started breaking down theories behind different paranormal events that involved UFOs. There's even some speculation that's also involved in the cryptozoology side of things with Bigfoot. There's been tales of footprints just disappearing into nothingness. Then the footprints are found way further up the field. This is the thing. There's so many different avenues to this. It's just unbelievable. When I brought this subject up, a lot of the UFOologists or people who are dead set solely about UFOs, they had such a sheer look of horror on their faces that I'd even mentioned this subject matter. Are we visiting stuff from the past? Are we doing this? And I actually gave them a lot of food for thought, because you can't just say, oh, no, it's definitely an alien. That's great, but is it an alien to us? But we're not aliens to them. We're just an moment in time they've come back to visit. I mean, this is the thing. We don't know where our timelines have taken us. I don't know tomorrow if I drive to work and get hit by a bus. I'm sure some people out there would like to see that happened. But the point being is that my timeline changes every second. How I conduct myself now, how conversation we're having now. If you didn't come over tonight, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Yeah, that's right.
This is the thing, and this is where this whole genre of whether or not it's alien, whether or not it's ghosts, whether or not it's something else. But yeah, I've always been fascinated. But this is a subject I love the zombie listeners to get involved with. And I should put something up on the site after we do the show tonight, and ask the question, what are we? And be interested in seeing the responses. Are we witnessing these events in a certain aspect, or are we not?
Yeah.
So hang on a tick. Could you, that's right, we've just got to pass over some awesome paperwork. Thank you, younger, beautiful assistant. That's right. So that's why we're looking at it, is we've got this whole new genre that's coming out that is totally different to anything else. So thank you, Alan. That sort of went from talking about a burning into a field spot, to right onto cross-dimensional beings and all the rest of it. But these are subjects that fascinate us and for the radio show and what we do. When we're not making fun of each other and having a good time, when we have a serious conversation about something, you can see the point being is that there are too many unanswered questions.
That's the one.
Oh God!
You got there.
I think I'm going to have to do something in the end. I can tell you that right now. Okay, so we're going to touch on another subject now, and Alan Tiller writes a second topic, and this is the most prevalent topic in most mind. This is amazing.
So we're going deeper than
deeper than the last one. He writes, second topic: why doesn't Liam wear a silly hat too? Actually, he must have seen the hat of my Bender hat when we took the photo.
That's a big one, isn't it?
But why don't you wear a Bender hat as well?
I don't have a Bender hat.
Well, I think we need to change that.
I would wear a silly hat if I had a silly hat.
And speaking of awesome silly hats, don't forget to check out our sponsor,
Zombie Steves.
Zombie Steves, yes, Zombie Steves. Go to his website, check it out. New competition that's been started up.
Yep.
Zombie Steves. If you go to the website, I'll just read it out for you now because I can never remember the stuff I do. Competition, we've got a Daryl Dixon bobblehead, a copy of The Road to Woodbury, and a copy of Rise of the Governor. to give away. All 3 are themed on The Walking Dead, and Zombie Steve's is covering the postage costs as well as it being free prizes. So, in conjunction with Zombie Steve's and Naked Zombie Radio, this is awesome stuff. Well, it'll be stating the comp. Okay, the comp will be starting on Friday, the 8th of March at 8 p.m. and will be open for entries until 8 p.m. Sunday, the 10th of March. It is the magic number, and I love this idea of the magic number competition. You have to pick a number between 1 and 1,000. 1 and 1,000.
1 in 1,000?
1 in 1,000. And people submit a guess. However, we'll also be asking a question on 8 p.m. Friday where the correct answer will be allowed a second number guess. So if you go to Zombie Steve's, go to the Facebook site, you'll find all the details there. And yes, so that would be cool. Now, here's a subject matter you know a lot about.
I do.
You know, and I'm going to let you run with this one. Matthew Dixon writes in, and we'll be having Matthew on the show on Friday. He writes in, is the site of the Pearl disaster. Now, this is not the Pearl Harbor disaster. People overseas are thinking, no, it's got nothing to do with Pearl Harbor. The Pearl disaster haunted, and why is there no memorial to this disaster, unless I'm mistaken? Now, you know more about this than probably anyone I know. I'm going to let you run with it.
Yeah, okay. So the Pearl was actually a vessel. It was a steamship that used to ply its trade up and down the Brisbane River. Mm-hmm. Now, when Brisbane had their big floods in 1893, one of the unfortunate factors of that flood was that what we know now is the main bridge that runs across from in front of the Treasury Casino across to the Cultural Centre and South Bank. So much flotsam and jetsam banked up alongside that bridge, the Victoria Bridge, that it actually smashed half the bridge away, and it broke pretty much right down the middle, right in the centre of the river, and washed from the centre of the river right up back to the Treasury Casino away. So given that that's completely severed North and South Brisbane at the time, the authorities pretty much got some lumps of wood and whatever they could find, and they built this rickety wooden bridge from what was left, the middle of the river, from what was left of this beautiful sturdy bridge across to at least get some traffic opened up. And the whole plan was that over the next couple of years they'd get a lot of money together, they'd build a new Victoria Bridge across the river, and then once that was complete, they would dismantle the old rickety wooden half of the bridge as well as the still standing stable part of the original, or that predecessor bridge. Yep. Now, it was nearing completion in 1896, towards around about this time of year, when we usually get our big summer rains and storms. Yep. And another huge flood ripped through Brisbane in 1896, and all the flotsam and jetsam washing down the river banked up against that wooden section of the bridge and smashed a couple of the pylons, and the bridge actually sunk about 2 metres in the middle. Yep. And it looked as if the bridge was going to come down, so it was immediately closed to any kind of traffic, including foot traffic, because the authorities were petrified that the bridge was going to give way, and they didn't want it to do so with people on it. Yep. So the immediate concern was that North and South Brisbane were again going to be cut off. So the council came up with this grand plan that they were going to go and find some ships that they would use as ferries. Now, given that they were the ones that had shut the bridge off, they obviously decided that they'd have to pay for the ferries. They couldn't expect people to pay for them because they were forcing them to take them and not the bridge. They went and found 5 vessels that were suitable for use as a ferry, one of which was this steamship named the Pearl. Now, they couldn't find a captain for us, so they went and eventually tracked down a guy named James Chard, he was a master mariner at the time, and said, would you mind acting as this ferry captain for the day, which he agreed to.
Is he the gentleman that's actually buried at South Brisbane?
He certainly is.
Cemetery?
Yeah, so almost smack bang in the middle of the cemetery.
Yeah, I've seen the actual site to that. It's funny, it's got no...
No, it's a very nondescript grave.
Grave, yeah. Sorry, mate, keep going.
But so anyway, he jumped on this boat and he ran it as a ferry. Now, it ran throughout the day as a ferry, transporting people back and forward, but the main problem came later in the afternoon when everyone was starting to knock off work. Now, around about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, as everyone was knocking off work in the city, they were all coming down to what was known as Queen's Wharf at that stage, pretty much sort of right in front of where the commissariat store in Brisbane is now. And they were loading them unbelievable numbers onto this ship. Now, he'd already had a problem. There was two vessels, one named the Normanby and one named the Lucinda. The Lucinda was the government vessel at the time, anchored just in front of Queen's Wharf. And Captain Chard was taking gambles and trying to put the ferry in between these two vessels and swing it in between the two, so he didn't have to go around because that would take him extra time. At one pass, he almost slammed into one of the vessels, came very, very close, but decided that he knew what he was doing and it wouldn't happen again. So unfortunately, just after 5 p.m, they loaded around about 100 people onto the vessel. They swung it out into the stream and came very, very near to slamming into one of the vessels again. So he immediately cut the engines, but at the same time as he cut the engines, a huge eddy of water swung the Pearl around, and the government steamer, the Lucinda, was sitting there, and he ran the Pearl up her anchor chain and cut her in half, and quite immediately cut her in half, and she went down in about 20 seconds. So with 100 people on board into raging floodwater. Because no one really knew, they weren't selling tickets, no one knew exactly how many people were on board.
And there was no record kept of how many people and all
That's
the rest
right.
of it. Yep.
So they, in the end, it's only a rough guess as to how many people died, but it's in the vicinity of around about 30. Most of the bodies were recovered. They hope that most of the bodies were recovered. There were a few people who they knew were on the vessel, who were there with friends or family, who were never recovered.
Yep.
And there's a high likelihood that if there were a few single people on that boat, at the same time, who weren't accounted for, no one else on the boat who survived knew that they were on there, they could have been washed out into Moreton Bay as well. But yeah, it's roughly around about 30 people who drowned.
Now, wasn't there a story, one of the particular stories involved a bloke and his two children? Or something like that, and they thought that the girl was okay, but the son had drowned.
So there was a father and his two kids. The mother had passed away, unfortunately, in hospital the day beforehand.
That's right.
And they were going over to bury her at Toowong Cemetery that afternoon, the afternoon of the Pearl disaster. They buried her and come back because they lived right down south side of Brisbane. And unfortunately, the three of them, the eldest son and daughter, and the father hopped onto the Pearl for the fateful trip across the river. Now, when it went down, all three of them went into the water and were separated. The girl, very fortunately, was pulled out of the water.
Yep.
And stuck on the south bank. And thinking that her brother and her father had drowned, she went and hopped on the train at Vulture Street. And while she was sitting there crying on the train, and the people on the train were trying to comfort her, her brother actually hopped on the train a couple of minutes later, sopping wet and crying, thinking that his sister and father had drowned. So the father never turned up, so they both suspected that he'd drowned, but they had younger siblings who were still at home down south side of Brisbane, so they caught the train home to look after the kids. And it turned out that the father actually had perished as a part of it. Now, it became such worldwide news that the Queen actually started taking a collection in London and put out a big call across England to have a big fundraiser, and those kids were actually taken back, the whole family, to the UK to be looked after. By this, underneath this huge fundraising effort that the Queen had raised. Yep.
Now, didn't the daughter come back?
The daughter did. So she's actually, her father, once they recovered his body, and it was some days before he was recovered, he was buried with the mother over at Toowong Cemetery, and the daughter eventually came back. She's actually buried with the father and mother over in Toowong as well. So,
see, I do know a little bit of history.
You do.
So with the Pearl and stuff like that, it's now there was something else that happened with the Pearl as well. Now, the captain, he went on, he survived, didn't he?
He did.
Yeah, he survived, and he actually, I don't think he ever.
So he lost his master's certificate. Yeah, right. There was a big inquest that ran for many months, and they eventually came to the conclusion that it had happened due to human error, and he'd just not taken the necessary precautions, or he'd not tried to be careful enough, and had been quite brash by trying to go between these two vessels, and they stripped him of his Master Mariner's certificate for quite a number of years before he finally earned it back. But he lived into the early 1930s. Yep. So for heading nearly 40 years after the disaster.
I mean, the thing is, when you go to his site where he's buried, you wouldn't pick it a mile away. It's just a slab.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, and you wouldn't think you'd walk if you go to cemeteries and that, and you're going to do the history side of thing. You'd walk past this thing like any other tombstone, and you wouldn't realise the history of the person that's buried there.
So, and I mean, even at South Brisbane, there's a number of other people who work for the Australian Steamship Navigation Co. and for a number of other major sort of mercantile shipping codes, and they've got incredibly proud graves with funnels and anchors and ropes, like really extensive monumental architecture on top of their grave. But poor old Captain Chard's got virtually nothing at all. So just a very, very humble, meagre headstone.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And when you look at the history and the story behind now, memorial, I don't think there is one, but I could be horribly wrong.
Now, this is the thing. I heard some years ago there was supposedly a memorial at Toowong Cemetery, but I've never been able to find it. And that was, of the people who died, it pretty much got split half and half. Half of the people who drowned are buried at South Brisbane Cemetery and the other half are buried at Toowong. And I know that there was some talk going around a little while ago that there was a memorial to the Pearl disaster victims at Toowong Cemetery in remembrance of the people who were buried there, but I've never been able to find anyone who's ever seen it or knows of it, so it pretty much goes unnoticed and unmentioned in Brisbane.
And I think that's one thing we can look into a bit further too. We can contact the service and stuff like that and see if there is anything about. Because that's interesting, isn't it? That one of the worst disasters.
Well, I mean, at the time,
Brisbane history.
Unbelievable disaster to lose 30 something people, in a river accident in the middle of the floods.
Yeah,
and no one ever really put any kind of memorial or anything up. Most people in Brisbane don't even know the story, and it's smack bang right there. I mean, when you sit, having your beer on the balcony of the Treasury Hotel looking out over the river. I mean, you think,
those bodies, literally.
Over a century ago, looking out over the river.
There was also bodies recovered kilometres away too, wasn't there? A lot of
massive distances away.
Distance. We're talking 100 something kilometres. So someone ended up on the island too, didn't they?
So one woman, they recovered her body a couple of weeks later over on Bribie Island.
That's it.
From having drowned and smack bang in the middle of the CBD. Another woman's body was recovered about 2 weeks later, and she was sort of caught up floating underneath the Redcliffe Pier, and they recovered her body. She's buried at South Brisbane Cemetery as well. But there was flotsam and jetsam hats and coats and stuff being washed up at Sandgate on the beaches from the Pearl, that had all been flushed out. All of the majority of the bodies, if they didn't get caught up on mangroves and stuff in the Brisbane River, all were washed out into Moreton Bay. So,
well, that's the thing, and the trouble is there's no real account of who they haven't found.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
That's the thing. There was a lot of people also that were not claimed who did perish, but there's also speculation that there were quite a number. 30 is all. They just put a round figure on 30. Yeah. That's basically what they recovered.
So it was pretty much 30 was the rough figure that was given to them on people who were suspected, known or suspected to have been on the vessel, who were never, who either turned up, their bodies were recovered, or just never, disappeared that day. So, I mean, there could have been another dozen people who were just on their own that day, who hopped on the ferry, and their family didn't know that they were on that ferry, who perished and washed out into Moreton Bay, and their family probably thought they'd run away or fallen out of contact, or who knows.
And this is the thing. It may be paying us to get a ticket, but at least if something happens, you've got the record of you being there.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, this is going back many, many years ago.
So, back to 1896.
1896, that's amazing, isn't it? So there you go, folks. There's a bit of trivia on the Pearl. But if you have any more information on the Brisbane disaster involving the Pearl, please let us know. If you have any feedback or information that you know about, please, get in touch with us. Yeah. We would love to hear more about it, or send us a story or something like that.
Yeah, I was going to say, in response to that secondary bit in Matt's, as to whether the site itself is haunted, I have no idea, because obviously the site itself is
in the middle of
the Brisbane River. Yeah. Although I have heard stories it's just off to the front. If you're standing in front of the commissariat store, actually down on the riverbank, just off to the left, and there's a major ferry pontoon. And for anyone who's caught the ferry across from South Brisbane to, I think might be like the Treasury Casino stop, and you get off on the pontoon, you walk down the gangway, and you sort of walk underneath the underpass where the Riverside Expressway is, and you go up a set of stairs, and it's a bit of a, it sort of cuts back and forward a bit on itself. When you get about 2/3 the way up, on your right, as you're walking still up the stairs, there's a big concrete slab, and it's got a couple of pipes sticking out. Now, that was actually the original site, or one of the original Brisbane morgues was on the riverbank there. In its day, when it was still functional, it had a big pier where people, bodies could be brought up the river and landed, onto the gantry and walked down and then held in the morgue. And I have heard stories that people have sort of felt weird things, and it's a bit of an ominous atmosphere, and heard weird sounds when they've been near that concrete slab. But most people just probably
wouldn't even know what it
passed by hundreds and hundreds of people a day.
You want to go and check that out one night?
Be very interesting. I'd love to.
Well, man, you go down and check it out, and take the old voice recorder down and see if we can pick up any EVPs and part of the radio show, and see if we can actually find anything. What do you reckon?
Sounds very good.
Yeah, we'll get back to you on that one, guys. We'll actually go. We'll organise something for next weekend or something like that. We'll shoot down that area because it's not far for either of us, and we'll go and spend some time there. See, it's the same as the Mount Pleasant. When the bridge collapsed over in the States, and it was blamed on the Mothman.
Yep.
When I was speaking to Travis Short about that, because he actually did Chronicles of the Mothman and stuff like that, he actually did a documentary on it. And he reckons that the actual site of the bridge, with the bridge collapse where all those people died, it's ominous. It's got a real weird feel to it. And there has been, from memory, and I'm going back a little bit now, there is reports of actual sounds of people and stuff like that. So it'd be very interesting to spend a night out there and just see what we pick up. It is very noisy though. That's the only thing we'd have to take in consideration, that the noise factor. You've got to get rid of the crap and try and get the good stuff. So that actually is a brilliant question.
It is.
I like that question. Right, now we've got another show-stopping question. I actually went to high school with this gentleman back in the late 80s. That's sad. Andrew Black writes, why was Scooby-Doo such a ghost hunting legend? Dead silence.
I don't know.
It was a cartoon, maybe.
Although what have we preached in the past? If you're going to go out hunting, no alcohol, definitely no drugs.
And definitely no sex.
No Scooby snacks.
No Scooby snacks. No, that's interesting, because you must admit, the Mystery Machine, right? Mystery Machine was hunting ghosts, demons and goblins and all the rest of it before it was cool.
They were trendsetters.
They set the trend for awesomeness. And you think it's funny that they may have had a Mystery Machine, but I've seen a lot of paranormal groups with their own cars done up to the T's now.
Yeah.
Their own ghost hunting cars and stuff like that.
Become the big thing with the big decals down the side. Yeah,
good on them, I reckon. That's cool. I mean, I was funny, speaking of that, funny story, when I was in New Zealand, I had, you've heard the story of my little Suzuki Caravan.
Yep.
Well, anyway, it was I'll call it the Bruise. Because it was all different colours. It was black and blue and all the rest of it. It was loud and obnoxious, and you had to roll start it every morning. But actually, across it, originally I had NZ Paranormal, but it was done with it was actually graphics, but it was just they print out and they put it on. And it had this terrible, crappy looking little van with it. Not a good image at all. I mean, but I thought it was great, because that thing took me everywhere, eh? But I must
have a look
admit,
at even like Ghost Hunters when they first started.
Yeah,
I mean, they've all got like these amazing. I think what are they, like Mitsubishi vans or something? Now they're all very schmick. But look at the first season or two seasons with the bashed up old black van that they had.
I think it was a white van. It was one of the old Roto-Rooter
plumbers vans.
Yeah, it had taps on the side, and that was it. Like just in white with a black van.
But it had like the magnet that you stick on the passenger door.
That's right. I remember one episode they pulled the magnet off and threw it in the car, so it wasn't stolen. But I mean, this is a thing that one day when the Zombie is like an international hit, and we actually get lots and lots of money just for making public appearances and being awesome, I too one day will buy another Suzuki Caravan. Put Naked Zombie. We'll get Matt to do the artwork and just stick it to the side of the van with a big magnet. I don't know if I'd want to have my... It's funny though, it's the trouble is when you go and advertise yourself on your car like that, it's either people are going to take notice and check you out, or they're going to get to it with a key.
I think, yeah.
Or they're going to ring you up and...
Maybe in America it works where people stand in awe, but I tend to think, given we've got a bit of tall poppy syndrome in Australia, and I think it's probably a bit more key-worthy in Australia.
Yeah, key-worthy. That's not like that key-worthy.
Half the paintwork scratched off.
Well, see, I don't know. I don't know whether I could actually do that. I don't know whether or not I could actually put Naked Zombie on the side of my car.
I was going to say, you probably get arrested for using the word naked. It's too lewd.
There's a naked chick on there, so I mean that's just goes without saying. It's a naked zombie lady. Here's our logo, so it'll draw a lot of looks. Probably the wrong type of looks.
We get Matt to put some clothes on her.
No, stuff that. No, leave her how she is.
A coat and a scarf.
Funny story. I was speaking to Matt a little while ago, and we were talking about the logo, and he goes, "Mate, yeah." And he said, I want to change the logo slightly. When we first got it, it was pretty cool, and I thought it was amazing. And I said, no, I want to fix it up a bit. And I said, as long as it's the same bird and she's not wearing clothes.
Yeah.
That was the deal. That was absolutely amazing. And I don't know. I'd be curious to see if people who do have their logo on their cars, I've been saying, have you guys ever been targeted? In that sense, like in good ways and bad ways. Have you ever had people ask you a question about, because you advertise them on the car for paranormal or something like that? But what's the response have you gotten from the public in general? I mean, look, shit, I remember having a Skyline years ago, and I come from a small country town, and I happened to be friends with a sign writer, right? He just bought this new printer, this massive printing machine. It cut out stuff. It was sticky stuff on your car.
Yeah.
I had this 79 Skyline, I think it was, one of the original vinyl, beautiful car, like absolutely mint condition. And he wanted to dress it up. Now, this is before decals on cars were cool. There was no decals on cars back then. None. You had the normal pinstriper, but nothing glary like you see nowadays. So I had this big web pattern going up the side of my car and this big lightning bolt in green and yellow. Like, I'm doing a visual thing again. So imagine a lightning bolt going up the full length of the car with this black web pattern underneath, and printed on the side up towards the end of it was rice burner. Kid you not, the day I got it done, I'm driving around and people was like, this is Gladstone, going, oh, wow, how cool is that? Anyway, so I was parked at the Mobil 24-hour, just sitting there with my mates having a talk, and I was only about 19. Anyway, this bird got so distracted looking at the car she was pulling, she drove straight into one of the Bowsers. That was my decision to leave the general area
quickly, just with haste.
Go. And it's surprising. It got a lot of looks. It got a lot of comments back in those days, and it was just none of them all good. So I'm curious to see what people, is it a good thing putting sign writers on?
Well, I think it's a great question, because I know that there are a few teams getting around Australia at the moment, with sort of paranormally style logos on their cars. So, does it draw queer looks
or good attention, bad attention?
Do people come over constantly and ask you what you do and share stories?
I'm sure the good outweigh the bad, but you'd always be worried about that one dickhead that came along and vandalised all that, because there's a lot of money that goes into these graphics on cars, a lot of money.
So it'd be a great icebreaker, I think, if you park somewhere to have people come over and tell you their stories, but all it takes is one idiot with a 20-cent coin or a set of car keys, doesn't it?
So I'm curious to see. So if you do have a car and listen to the show, what's that one car that's out there at the moment that pulls the trailer, black trailer, black car, station wagon, haunts Brisbane? Haunted Australia.
Haunted Australia.
I think it's Haunted Australia.
Yeah,
that car's cool. Imagine it is a cool looking car. I mean, it's done beautifully. It is done really nice. I like the graphics on that. It looks smicko, you know what I mean? So I'm just curious. So people out there who have that sort of stuff on their car, You know, does it give you the intention of advertising as you want it to?
I was going to say, very cool story. Quite a few years ago now, I lived in a house over at Coorparoo for about probably 6 weeks. Mm-hmm. And at the bottom of the hill, so only about 200 metres away, there was a chap who had an exact replica of Ecto-1.
Oh, you're kidding.
It was a Cadillac ambulance.
Yeah.
Exact replica. I kid you not.
And they had it
perfect in every regard. I have no idea.
I do know there are a few DeLoreans running around Brisbane. There's more than I thought.
Yeah, there's a few more now. I know that I was probably going back 10 or 12 years ago. There was only the one, I think. But I've seen a few in the last few years. Yeah. But anyone who knows the chat with the Ecto-1,
because I've never seen it.
It's amazing. I dribbled on myself.
Maybe. I've just had a thought. I had a thought.
You had a thought?
An awesome thought. What if we buy an old bomb, right? Get sponsorship, do it all up through sponsorship, have the logo set, and we do it the same style as the Ecto-1, but with Naked Zombie all over it. So every time we go out somewhere, we could have sirens blazing, we can have flashy lights, things. I'm getting very animated again, like I got told. My father watched the interview I did.
He did?
Speak. He said, "You're very animated when you talk, aren't you?" I said, "Yes, Dad." What? I'm doing it again. So yeah, he saw that. But yeah, wouldn't that be cool?
That would be very cool
to have something like that. If we start doing, sorry guys, but we're having a bit of a mind thing here. I mean, because see, the trouble is with me, I couldn't put like normal Naked Zombie radio on the car. It wouldn't be me.
Yeah.
But if I was to have flashy lights, siren.
So it couldn't just be like a normal car with
it couldn't be
Naked Zombie decals. It would have to be
it couldn't be a normal
awesome car.
And just imagine going out to different events in the Naked Zombie street machine. You know, like just have the sirens and then the wheels.
So if anyone's got a 1960s model Cadillac ambulance out there,
if you're keen to give us an old car or something like that, we can do up. Hey, that would be pretty cool, man. That's another thing on the wish list.
Who knows?
Hey,
an old hearse. Anyone got an old hearse?
That'd be cool, and we could have our mobile recording studio in the back for when we do live broadcasts.
Oh. How good would that be?
How awesome would that be?
Step into the interview room.
Step in and actually have a mobile interview studio, and have you could do some wonderful cool stuff with that. Oh man, I was speaking to a young guy at work. He races V8 Utes, right? And this is a funny thing, and this is where, you know, we don't get enough attention because sport does in a lot of aspects. He got $150,000 sponsorship deals, right, to race a V8 Ute in some sort of V8 race. Yeah, like $300,000 plus other $20,000, $50,000. Yeah, and he's only like a first-time racer.
What if we got a V8 hearse, Naked Zombie hearse, and raced it? Just on weekends.
Just on weekends.
And then,
to me, I'd be too scared to dent it. But if we were to drive around Brisbane and around Australia, right, in the Naked Zombie mobile DJ wee-wall flashing lights and cool shit hanging off it, like they have on the Ecto-1, like have this big setup, that would. We're just dribbling absolute shit now, but it's a nice thought.
It's a lovely thought. Do kids' parties and...
No. I don't want to do kids' parties. I don't like children. Yes, I love children, especially with a bit of parsley dressing. Anyway, so, hey, guess what, Doodles? We've come to the end of tonight's show. That was basically our... And thank you. And I must thank again the people, the awesome people have volunteered the questions tonight because absolutely we had nothing, as per usual. Because this is the way we roll here on The Zombie. I'd like to personally thank Jason Gibbs, who brought up the work for the devil thing. Also Alan Tiller for his 2 questions regarding the mysterious lights blowing for Circle of Fire. And then we just went on a tangent on all sorts of different
if you do have some funny hats,
send us some funny
send them to me via Naked Zombie.
Yeah, if you want to know where to send funny hats to, I'll email me and I'll give you the post.
I'll wear a different funny hat every week.
And we'll wear a funny hat and post it before the show each week. I've got me Bender hat, which I love to best. Thank you, Zombie Steve. Alan Tears with Sapphic Topic, get the silly hat. Matthew Dixon with the Pearl disaster.
Yep.
Brilliant. I'd love that story, and I actually knew something about that.
You did?
A little bit. Not as much as you, though, Mr. Guru with knowledge. And also, Andrew Black, thank you for the Scooby-Doo, because we just went on another chat.
We would never have thought up our mobile Naked Zombie recording
we're going to have to do
otherwise.
something more, eh? So we're going to have to get out there more around the country and have a mobile radio show where we can actually go out to different locations and interview people and broadcast it that way.
Yep.
That would be safe. That's maybe down the track. You never know with a zombie where it's going. Also, thanks to the guys and girls from Ghosts of Oz radio show. Interviewed with them the other night. Turns I haven't had a chance to listen to it yet, unfortunately, because I've been too busy. Turns out, they seem to enjoy it. So that went well. And all the other stuff that's going on with the zombie. And if you have any questions or queries or anything like, you know where to go to the website, which is www.naked-zombie-radio.com. Go to the contacts page there on the website where you probably listen to this now and leave us a request or information or stuff like that. And I've had some other bands contact me as well.
Excellent.
So we've got other bands maybe in the future we're going to put on the show as well. But I did realise something really cool today when I was listening to the radio.
What did you realise?
I realised that how the hell can we talk solidly for a whole hour when most radio announcers get to have like 20-minute breaks in between while music are playing?
That's a good point.
They talk for 10 minutes, then there's like an hour of music, then they talk for another 10 minutes. What a job!
It's awesome, isn't it?
And they get paid for it.
Paid bloody hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to be like cumulatively on radio for like 40 minutes a day.
And I could get paid a shitload of money too if I went on radio and abused people for the fun of it.
Yeah.
Why not? Drive around my seat. I don't know. Maybe I should go and do.
I think everyone should send us emails on who to abuse.
Yep.
And
don't do that.
Make the checks out to Naked Zombie Radio.
And those are the shows you got to pay for.
Yeah.
Anyway, guys and girls, listen. Thank you again, and thank you again, Liam, for joining us tonight.
Always a
absolutely
pleasure.
Wonderful. And I'm glad my cooking didn't kill you in any way. Like I said, have any questions? Get in touch with us. Have you anything you want us to talk about? Send us the information. The Naked Weirdness is coming up soon. And you've got any funny stories or anything like that you want to send through to us? Go. We don't mind checking the stuff ourselves. But if you've got something particularly you want to hear or have our viewpoint on, send it through.
That's it.
It's easy as that. Anyway, thank you to our wonderful, wonderful listeners who make the show all the worthwhile. We have so much fun with this. Don't forget to tell your friends about Naked Zombie Radio and the Facebook fan site. You know? This is where most of the information goes up of all the stuff that we do, and have fun with. The website is mainly just for the website, for the radio show and bits of information, but the fan site's just for the other crap we go on with. So don't forget to tell people, and I'm sure they'll get something out of it as well. If not, I'll get horrible emails.
That's it.
I love the horrible emails. I got some broad jobs. Have a good night, everyone. Have a safe night. And if you're out doing horrible things to one another in public places or in the public toilets or anywhere where you might be caught, think twice before you roll that dice. That made no sense at all, did it?
This has been a public service announcement.
This has been a public service announcement from Naked Zombie Radio. Have a good night, everyone. Have a safe night. We'll speak to you all soon. Fiddle.
Bye.